So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Came in late the other day, she told me, she said, "You ain't going nowhere tonight." I said, "I'm going out, honey." She said, "You ain't going no goddamn where tonight." I said, "Baby," I said, who the hell you think you're talking to? I said, "Look at my birth certificate. I'm 42 years old." She said, "You want to be 43? This is a true story, man. I went out anyway, right? I was so nervous, I couldn't really play. I couldn't think. And I'm sitting up there, man, I'm playing. My pager kept going off, and everybody was teasing me and everything. And then she told me, I said, "Man, let me use your phone. I'm sitting in my wife's car. I'm front. I'm really front." So I called home and everything, and I said, "Hello?" I said, "Don't ask me a goddamn thing. Just pay attention." I said, "Don't worry about where the hell I am. I'm in my skin. I'll be home, goddamn it, when I get there. When I get there, I better have something to eat. And it better be hot, and it better be good. You think I'm bullshitting?" I said, "Let me speak to your mama."
Good morning. It's Friday, Parenting Friday, August the 1st, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the headlines, patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and the collapse of parenting. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, the end of Marie and the beginning of Stu.
And have a fantastic weekend. Stephanie Pomboy, Steve Moore, Joni Biley, Joel Schulman, and John Lonsky. I will see you tonight on Maria Bartiromo's Wall Street. We got a big show, and I'll see you Sunday on Sunday Morning Futures. Have a great weekend, everybody. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
All right. Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Starting August the 7th, 1 week from today, the rest of the world will pay a tariff on the products they send to America. All right. Some countries, like Britain, will pay 10%. Most will pay 15%, like the Europeans. Some will pay much more. Switzerland, for example, coming in at 39%. And Canada, well, they get an immediate bump up. No deadline for them. It's happening now. 35%. Expect the phones to be ringing off the hook at the White House as countries scramble to make a deal before next Friday. We also have the jobs report. Woohoo! In June, just 73,000 jobs were added to the economy. The unemployment rate came in a little higher at 4.2%. But we should tell you that the jobs number for May and June revised down sharply. 258,000 fewer jobs, actually. That's a very big reduction. This will surely increase pressure on the Fed to cut rates. Here's how the market's reacting to tariffs and jobs. Plenty of selling. The Dow Industrial is off about 370. The Nasdaq is down 270. Look at Apple and Amazon. They reported last night. Amazon issued a gloomy forecast, and it is way down this morning. And let me look at that, down 7% at this moment. Apple announced a solid 10% jump in revenue, but it said tariffs had cost the company $1.1 billion. The stock is up slightly, $3 higher. No joy for Bitcoin. It is now quoted around $115,000. The 10-year Treasury yield, that's coming down. Treasury yield's down across the board. We're back to 4.26 now on the 10-year. That's a significant drop. And the 2-year, I was going to say it's way below 4%. It certainly is. It's below 3.8%, 3.78 to be precise. Politics. Trump sent a letter to 17 pharmaceutical companies demanding a cut in drug prices. He's given them until September 29th to respond with binding commitments, his words. On the show today, the Democrats' dilemma. They want Biden and Harris to fade into quiet retirement, but they won't go away. The former president turned in an embarrassing performance at a speech last night. He looked completely lost. And Kamala Harris appeared with Stephen Colbert to promote her book. No new ideas, just more word salads. And the president announced plans to build a ballroom at the White House. He's going to pay for it, and he's going to decorate it. The Trump haters are aghast at the idea of Trump's taste lingering at the White House for decades to come. Friday, August the 1st, 2025.
And that was Stuart Varney, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the political corner.
Can't even be white anymore. Y'all are mad at Sydney Sweeney because she's white, she's blonde, she's blue-eyed, and she looks good. I am DEI'd out.
And that was the political corner. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the Patriotic Short.
On February 20th, 1944, during a bombing mission over Germany, the B-17 flying fortress named 10 Horsepower was attacked by a squadron of enemy fighters. During the devastating assault, the co-pilot, Flight Officer Ronald Bartley, was killed instantly, the radio operator, Sergeant Joseph Rex, wounded, and the pilot, First Lieutenant Clarence Nelson, was left gravely wounded and unconscious. The aircraft itself suffered severe damage and began spiraling out of control. Despite the chaos, Second Lieutenant Walter Trumper, the navigator, and Staff Sergeant Archibald Matthews, the flight engineer, along with another crewman, fought to stabilize the crippled bomber. Against all odds, they managed to bring the aircraft back across hostile territory towards their home base at RAF Polbrook. Once over friendly ground, they contacted the control tower and explained the dire situation on board. With the pilot incapacitated and no one left to fly the plane, the surviving crew was ordered to bail out. But First Lieutenant Trumper and Staff Sergeant Matthews radioed back that the pilot was still alive and that they would not leave him behind. Instead, they volunteered to attempt a landing, despite having no formal flight training. After observing the damaged aircraft, the commanding officer determined it couldn't be landed safely by such an inexperienced crew and ordered them to abandon the plane. But they again refused. After 2 unsuccessful attempts, they came around for a third try when the aircraft crashed into an open field. All 3 men, First Lieutenant Nelson, Second Lieutenant Trooper, and Staff Sergeant Matthews, were all killed. For their decision not to leave their fellow aviator behind, Second Lieutenant Walter Trooper and Staff Sergeant Archibald Matthews were both posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor.
And that was the Patriotic Short. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
There's a big misconception out there that people who are successful are not afraid, which is not true. People who are successful are oftentimes the most afraid. They're afraid of failure, so they do everything they can to escape it. So they're going to run the hardest, they're going to run the fastest, and they're going to be the ones who are going to take every single action that they have to take to make sure they get where they need to be. So I don't want you to wait any longer. Don't worry about the how or what ifs. Make a list. Put your back up against the wall and execute on that damn list. Do that every single day, and you will be where you want to be. I guarantee it.
The journey is not easy. Everyone's hot off the start, but after a month or so into it, with the wear and tear and the grind starts to hit you, you start losing focus on the horizon, do you not? You get caught away in the daily hiccups, the ups and downs, and the wear and tear. And you focus on the speed bumps, the daily activities, losing sight of their true purpose.
Most of you won't be successful because when you're studying and you get tired, you quit. Don't cry to give up. Cry to keep going. Don't cry to quit. You already in pain. You already hurt. Get a reward from it.
The difference between a winner and a loser, the failure's there every single time. It's just the winner gets back up and does it again, and does it again, until it goes his way.
I don't care how hard you fall. I don't care if nobody don't believe in you. It only takes you believing in yourself to get this thing done. And listen to me, it ain't failure if you learn from it, baby. So if you fall on your back so you can look up, because if you can look up, then you can get up. I dare you to take a little pain. I dare you. At the end of pain is success.
If you can stay in the race, if you can stay in the fight, then you can dictate your own future.
I dare you to fail. I dare you to take that same class over and over again. I dare you to stop dropping classes like you soft.
See, getting what you want is up to you. You can turn your life around if you change your attitude. You change your attitude, you change your altitude.
Your mind and attitude is all you need to be successful. That's all you need. You don't need to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth. You don't need money. You don't even need folk that like you. As long as you believe in you, you got the right mindset, you got the right attitude, we can make it happen. I don't care what's going on around you, because it's not what happens around you that determines your success. It's what happens inside you. And you can't control the elements, but you can control your attitude and you can control your mindset. And I'm telling you right now, don't give up. I'm telling you right now, don't give in. Get through it. And so God has allowed you to go up the rough side of the mountain, not so he can hurt you or break you. He's trying to redesign me. I'm telling you right now because I care about you. I'm telling you right now because I've been there. I've done that. You've been in it for 3 years and you about to quit. Oh, you've been doing it for 5 years and it don't look like you think. You put all your money in it. You put all your time in it. People are looking at you crazy. 5 years you've invested. Oh, you put too much in it to quit now. Oh. It doesn't look like you think. You didn't get the grades you thought you were going to get. So maybe I'm not meant to be a lawyer. Hold. Lay hold of it. You lay hold of it. And when that thing tells you to quit, you look at it in his eye and say, I ain't going nowhere. I will break you before you break me. You will not defeat me. You will not destroy me. You've been through so much hell. You going to quit now? And when you get to success, it's not about skill. When you get to a certain level of success, it's about stamina. You won't break me. You can't take me. I fought too long. I fought too hard. I'm unbreakable now.
You get one shot. Opportunity comes once in a lifetime. You better make the kind of decisions that's going to take you to the NBA. You better make the right decisions that's going to take you to the NFL. You better make the right decisions that are going to land you the next best rapper, the next business tycoon. It's one thing to talk about your destiny, but it's another thing to wake up when you know you're supposed to wake up, to write when you don't feel like writing that paper, to say no to that party, saying no to quitting when you still got 100 more shots to make, saying no when your body said don't stop, but you put in 50 more push-ups. You can't just talk about it. You gotta be about it.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation. Thank you. And now the Daily Stoic.
We reap what we sow. Crimes often return to their teacher. Seneca, Thyestes 3:11. It's ironic that Seneca would have one of his characters utter this line. As we know, for many years, Seneca served as the tutor and mentor to the Emperor Nero. There is a lot of evidence that Seneca was, in fact, a positive moral influence on the deranged young man, but even at the time, Seneca's contemporaries found it strange that a philosopher would serve as the right hand to such an evil person. They even used the Greek word tyrannodidaskalos, tyrant teacher, to describe him. And just as Shakespeare observed in Macbeth, bloody instructions which being taught return to plague the inventor. Seneca's collaboration with Nero ultimately ended with the student murdering the teacher.
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, His Excellency, Bishop Robert Barron.
In our world, it's practically impossible to give a gift. A gift, by definition, is something that's offered with no strings attached. When you receive a gift from somebody, it's a monetary gift, don't you feel at least the obligation to respond with a thank you note? In other words, the gift comes as a kind of invasion that now awakens in me a need to respond. You can never really give a true gift. I think this is largely right in our fallen, sinful, and conflictual world. I think it is very hard to give a gift or receive a gift without being caught in this kind of obligatory exchange. There is one great exception. Who can really, truly, and fully give a gift? God. Why? Because God needs nothing. Anything we give to God adds nothing to God's greatness. God's perfect. Everything we have is, in fact, already been given by God. There's nothing he needs in return.
And that was His Excellency, Bishop Robert Barron. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, "The essence of capitalism's foreign policy is free trade, i.e., the abolition of trade barriers, of protective tariffs, of special privileges, the opening up of the world's trade routes of free international exchange and competition among the private citizens of all countries dealing directly with one another." Unquote. And that was Ayn Rand from the chapter The Roots of War, from the book Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now, psychopathy.
The Dark Triad represents the unholy trinity. Look no further than the notoriously malevolent serial killer Ted Bundy. Charismatic, cunning, and remorseless. These Dark Triad types embody the following traits. Narcissism, having an inflated sense of self-importance and a constant need for admiration. Behind the mask, a fragile ego craves validation. Machiavellianism, embodying the art of manipulation, where trust is an illusion and every action is calculated, using others as mere tools for personal gain. Psychopathy, marked by a lack of empathy and remorse. Cold and calculated, a true predator in human form. Beware, as Dark Triad types tend to hide in plain sight. Would you recognize a Dark Triad type?
And that was psychopathy. Back in a minute. Thank you very much. And now a little bit of Victor Davis Hanson, who gets it absolutely wrong. And I'll explain why right after his clip.
I usually don't give advice to Donald Trump, who knows much more about politics, obviously, than most of us. But I think he could use maybe a suggestion on messaging. He's getting attacked by the left for autocratic use of presidential powers. He's dictatorial. Donald Trump, I think, could remind people that he's just following the presidents that he inherited. Barack Obama, issued about 260 executive orders. He said, I have a phone and I have a pen and I'm going to bypass Congress. Barack Obama deported more people than any other prior president. In 2016, Barack Obama bombed 7 different countries, 26,000 bombs, again, without congressional authorization. So whether it's executive orders or the border or the president's executive powers as commander-in-chief, all he has to say is he's doing nothing ahistorical or unprecedented. And the prior president was established by Joe Biden and Barack Obama, and he is just following in their illustrious tradition. I usually don't give...
So anyways, he's wrong. He's just absolutely wrong. He's another one of these... by the way, he's a professor at a Cal State university. So again, that explains his whole attitude here and his use of $5 words, ahistorical or unhistorical, and words like that. He acts as though you and I are going to be going to the Harvard Debate Club and engaging in a debate there about this. No. The lefties you and I have to deal with are the people that we meet at work, on the soccer fields, coming out of church, that kind of thing. Okay, regular people that are not into ahistorical. I tell somebody it's ahistorical, they're going to want to say, well, what does that mean? Then when I explain what it means, they're going to say, why didn't you just say that in the first place? And right away, I'm lost. My message is completely and utterly lost. The other thing here is his fetish. Him and there's a couple of other people on the right that have this fetish with facts, usually statistics. 260,000 bombs. So what? Who cares? Who cares? It does nothing for me. Okay, so I'm supposed to do what? I'm supposed to break out my 3-ring binder and write all this down and then keep it tucked under my arm wherever I go so that when I run into Sammy Socialist who tries to give me the business about Donald Trump, I can whip out the facts? No. Let me tell you what you say to people that say, well, Donald Trump this or Donald Trump that, and they're whining and complaining about what Donald Trump did. This is what you say. You say, that's right. And there's nothing you can do about it because you have no power, no authority, and you can't win. That's what you say. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Candace.
Après, pour les cancres de la poste, qui ont osé encore voler des talismans à des gens, c'est-à-dire que la personne, c'est contre-signature, on leur ramène une enveloppe juste avec le mot de prédiction de la connaissance, seulement ils volent les talismans. Alors je vous explique la poste. C'est pas parce que vous allez voler un talisman qui va être puissant. C'est pire. C'est comme si vous touchez le feu, on renverse la vapeur contre vous et en plus on les démagnétise. Parce que c'est bien clair pour vous. Donc vous arrêtez de voler les talismans aux gens parce que vous n'allez pas faire fortune avec, parce que c'est pas la connaissance qui vous les envoie personnellement. Donc vous laissez tranquille notre confrérie et vous arrêtez de voler les talismans à toute balle alors que c'est contre signature et vous donnez des enveloppes ouvertes. C'est une honte absolue vu le prix des colissimos en suivi avec signature. Je vous le dis, je ne vais pas me laisser faire avec vous. Donc vous laissez tranquille tous ces talismans et vous donnez aux gens et vous faites votre travail comme tout le monde. Ça devient inadmissible. Après, pour les cancres de la poste qui ont osé encore voler des talismans à des gens, c'est-à-dire que la personne, c'est contre signature, on leur ramène une enveloppe juste avec le mot de prédiction de la connaissance, seulement ils volent les talismans. Alors je vous explique la poste. C'est pas parce que vous allez voler un talisman qui va être puissant. C'est pire, c'est comme si vous touchez le feu, on renverse la vapeur contre vous et en plus on les démagnétise.
And that was Candace. Back in a minute. Thank you, thank you. And now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining you're losing, mean in debates? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, when you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. One of the things I was thinking about a little while ago was about the divide in the United States of America. There's a lot of people that talk about, oh, we're divided. How come we're so divided? It's really simple. It struck me as being absolutely simple because the far right and the far left are the only things that are worth fighting for. The extremes in any situation are the only things that are worth fighting for. Nobody is going to go out into the street and protest in support of the middle. There's no point. There's no point in it. Nobody's going to storm City Hall. No group of people is going to storm City Hall for the sake of moderacy. It doesn't make any sense. So, back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the last half hour of Chapter 1, The Culture of Disrespect, from the book The Collapse of Parenting.
It would be unusual to find an American girl or boy who's proud to wear her or his grandparents' clothes. But as far as our job as parents is concerned, it doesn't really matter why parents lost their authority or why this trend may be more pronounced in the United States than elsewhere. We need to understand what to do about it, which will be one of our objectives in this book. As Canadian psychologist Dr. Gordon Neufeld has observed, in most cultures, in most times, and at most places, the job of enculturing the child is not primarily the job of the mother and father. The entire culture takes part. Schools, the community, and even popular stories are all in sync in teaching the basic rules, the fabric of the culture. In our time, many schools have retreated from normative instruction about right and wrong, in part to emphasize academics, and in part because normative instruction about right and wrong now can be politically risky. It's now easier to focus on teaching phonics than to teach Fulgham's rules or any other absolute notions of good behavior. It's easier for teachers or school administrators to suggest that a child has oppositional defiant disorder and suggest a visit to the doctor than to exhort parents to work harder at the task of teaching basic social skills to their child. The end result is that parents today must shoulder a greater burden than parents in previous generations while having fewer resources to enable them to do their job. Before we go any further in our discussion of the loss of parental authority, I want to make sure you and I are on the same page with regard to what I mean by parental authority. I've learned that when I speak to parents, many confuse parental authority with parental discipline. They think that parental authority is all about enforcing discipline. In fact, parental authority is mostly about what is valued. Strong parental authority means that parents matter, and the parents' culture matters more than same-age peers and the culture of same-age peers. In contemporary American culture, peers matter more than parents, and peer culture reigns supreme. For most of the history of our species, children have learned culture from the adults. That's why childhood and adolescence have to be so long in our species. But in the USA today, kids no longer learn culture from the grown-ups. American children and teens today have their own culture, a culture of disrespect, which they learn from their peers and from social media and from popular songs, movies, and TV shows, and which they in turn teach to their peers. It's tough to be a parent in a culture which constantly undermines parental authority, a culture in which parents are most often portrayed as clueless idiots, whether on the Disney Channel or on social media. 2 generations ago, American parents had much greater authority, and the culture supported the authority of parents. In that era, American parents were more likely to teach right and wrong in no uncertain terms. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Love your neighbor as yourself. Those were commands, not suggestions. Today, most American parents no longer act with such authority. They do not command. Instead, they ask, how would you feel if someone did that to you? The command has morphed into a question. And parents don't know what to say when their son replies, if someone did that to me, I'd kick him in the nuts, then I'd sit on his face. Even when kids produce the canned answer, which they know the grown-ups want to hear, the answer is mere regurgitation. Nothing has been digested. No real communication across the generations, the most important feature of enculturation, has occurred. What does it mean to assert your authority as a parent? It doesn't mean being a tough disciplinarian. Among other things, it means that the parent-child relationship takes priority over the relationships between the child and his or her same-age peers. Not just for toddlers, but for teenagers as well. It means that parents are doing their job, fulfilling their biological niche, if you like, of teaching the child how to behave, both within and outside the family unit, of teaching the child what matters, of teaching the child what's acceptable and what is unacceptable. Recall that the purpose of a prolonged childhood in our species seems to be first and foremost for the child to learn the grown-up culture from the grown-ups. When parents lose their authority, when same-age peers matter more than parents, then kids are no longer interested in learning the culture of the parents. They want to learn the culture of their same-age peers, the culture they see on social media and on popular TV shows. Throughout this book, we will see just how harmful that is. The benefits of parental authority are substantial. When parents matter more than peers, then parents can teach right and wrong in a meaningful way. They can prioritize attachments within the family above attachments between kids and their same-age peers. They can nurture and grow better relationships between their children and other adults. They can help their child to develop a more robust and more authentic sense of self, grounded not in how many likes a selfie gets on social media, but in the child's truest nature. When the parent-child relationship is the foundation of the child's world, then the child can rest secure because the parents will never stop loving the child. Of course, that isn't true of abusive or neglectful parents, but abusive or neglectful parents don't read parenting books. You are a loving parent, or you wouldn't be listening to this book. When the relationship a child has with a same-age peer is the foundation of the child's world, on the other hand, the child's world is precarious because the regard of your peers can change in one day, in 5 minutes, and every kid knows that. The issue for parents isn't always that they are unwilling to assert their authority. Sometimes they believe that they are helping their children by letting kids make decisions which are really not age appropriate. Here's an example of what not to do. In other words, an example of how many parents now behave. Megan and Jim are both 40-something parents. Their daughter, Courtney, was 12 years old when Megan and Jim planned a ski vacation between Christmas and New Year's. 4 days, 3 nights. Their daughter politely declined. "You know I'm not crazy about skiing," she said. "I'll just stay at Arden's house for those 4 days." Her parents said it's okay. So her parents went on the ski vacation by themselves, and Courtney spent 4 days as the guest of her best friend. I didn't mind. In fact, I was pleased that Courtney could be so independent, Megan told me. But Megan is mistaken. Courtney isn't independent. No 12-year-old truly is. Instead, Courtney has transferred her natural dependence from her parents, where it should be, to her same-age peers, where it shouldn't be. Courtney's top priorities now lie in pleasing her friends, being liked by her friends, being accepted by her same-age peers. Her parents have become an afterthought, a means to other ends. You love your child. It's natural to want to please someone you love. If your daughter doesn't want to join you and your spouse on a ski vacation, it feels harsh to say, "Nevertheless, despite your protests, you are coming with us." But that's what you must say. Why? Because having fun together is one foundation, maybe the best foundation, for authoritative parenting in the modern world. We'll come back to this thought in Chapter 11, Joy. Because if most of the good times come when your kid is having fun with other kids and not with you, then it's no wonder that your kid doesn't want to hang with you over the holiday. Because if you can't find a way to have fun with your kid on a vacation, fun that both of you really enjoy, then you've got big problems. Because your kids won't value time with you above time with their same age peers. If they rarely spend any time with you doing fun stuff, that's part of what it means to exercise parental authority. I mentioned Dr. Neufeld, the Canadian psychologist who recently retired from active practice after 40 years of working with children and adolescents. Over the past 4 decades, he has observed firsthand a fundamental change in the ways in which kids across North America form and prioritize attachments. 40 years ago, kids' primary attachment was to their parents. Today, for most kids in the United States and Canada, kids' primary attachment is to other kids. For the first time in history, Neufeld observes, young people are turning for instruction, modeling, and guidance, not to mothers, fathers, teachers, and other responsible adults, but to people whom nature never intended to place in a parenting role, their own peers. Children are being brought up by immature persons who cannot possibly guide them to maturity. They're being brought up by each other. Today, most North American kids find their primary attachment in their relations with same-age peers. They care more about what other kids think of them than about what their parents think of them. Neufeld describes a girl, Cynthia, who had become rude, secretive, and sometimes hostile toward her parents, while remaining happy and charming when around her friends. She was obsessive about her privacy and insistent that her life was none of her parents' business. Her mother and father found it difficult to speak with her without being made to feel intrusive. Their previously loving daughter appeared to be less and less comfortable in their company. It was impossible to sustain any conversation with her. I personally have found this scenario to be common from late elementary school through high school, not only in my medical practice, but in my meetings with parents all across the United States and Canada. How best to understand it? Neufeld asks, imagine that your spouse or lover suddenly begins to act strangely, won't look you in the eye, rejects physical contact, speaks to you irritably in monosyllables, shuns your approaches, and avoids your company. Then imagine that you go to your friends for advice. Would they say to you, have you tried a timeout? Have you imposed limits and made clear what your expectations are? It would be obvious to everyone that in the context of adult interaction, you're dealing not with a behavior problem, but a relationship problem. And probably the first suspicion to arise would be that your partner was having an affair. Neufeld observes that the primary problem in Cynthia's relationship with her parents is that she had come to place a higher value on her attachment to her peers than on her attachment with her parents. Once that happens, any attempt by parents to set limits on their child's interactions with their peers, for example, no texting or phone calls after 9:30 p.m., can prompt sulking or a tantrum. Parents need to recognize such tantrums or sulking as symptoms of a shift in the child's primary attachment from parents to peers. Too often, parents today allow their parenting to be governed by their desire to please their child. If your relationship with your child is governed by your own desire to be loved by them, the odds are good that you will not achieve even that objective. There is something hardwired going on here. The child expects to look up to the parent, to be instructed by the parent, even to be commanded by the parent when appropriate. If the parent instead is serving the child, that relationship falls out of its natural balance. You may not earn your child's love at all. And the more you try, the more pathetically unsuccessful you will be. I have seen precisely this dynamic play out at least 100 times in my own medical practice since 1989. The parent who puts the child's wishes first may earn only their child's contempt, not their love. But if you are not primarily concerned about your child's love and affection, and you instead focus on your duties as a parent to teach your child right from wrong, to communicate to them what it means to be a responsible man or woman within the constraints of the culture you are trying to teach and to share, then you may find that your child loves and respects you when you're not looking for it. When I was a young doctor back in the 1990s, I saw no connection between politics and parenting. Left-of-center parents were no different in their parenting style, on average, compared with right-of-center parents. Some left-of-center parents were too hard, some were too soft, and some were just right. And the same was true of right-of-center parents. But over roughly the past 10 years, I've noticed something new. For the first time, I am seeing a political dimension to parenting. Specifically, left-of-center parents have become more permissive compared with right-of-center parents. I'm seeing a growing number of parents who truly believe that it's virtuous to let the kid be in charge. Recall that mom who wouldn't help me when her daughter refused to open her mouth. The mom who said, her body, her choice. Almost every day that I am in the office, I now encounter parents who believe in gentle parenting, or its close relatives, mindful parenting, or intentional parenting. The gentle parent always lets the child decide. The gentle parent never uses punishments of any kind, not even timeouts. The gentle parent does not toilet train the child, but instead models toileting for the toddler, which will, it is hoped, inspire the toddler to want to use the toilet instead of the diaper. One mother was playing with her son, then gently let him know that she needed to take a break from playing with him in order to do some housework. Her son exploded in anger, hitting and kicking his mom. That mom reached out to Robin Einzig, a leading guru of gentle parenting, to ask what she should do in that situation. Einzig responded without hesitation. He's telling you very clearly that right now he needs your presence. Forget the house cleaning. You have to play with the boy until he decides to stop. Jessica Winter, writing for The New Yorker, observes that gentle parenting requires the parent to transform himself, herself, into a self-renouncing, perpetually present humanoid who has nothing but time and who is programmed for nothing but calm. Winter predicts that the next generation can anticipate blaming their high rates of depression and anxiety on the over-validation and under-correction native to gentle parenting. As a family doctor, I simply did not encounter this kind of parenting 10 years ago. Now I see it almost every day that I'm in the office. And the parents who practice gentle parenting are almost always politically left of center. This change may help to explain some new findings. Let's talk about depression in teenagers. Researchers have known for decades that teenage girls are more likely than teenage boys to be depressed. But some recent studies have called attention to the interaction between politics and depression among adolescents. Namely, the finding that left-of-center adolescents are increasingly more likely to be depressed compared with adolescents who are politically right-of-center. This finding is so pronounced that left-of-center boys are now significantly more likely to be depressed than are right-of-center girls. Catherine Gimbrone and her colleagues at Columbia University tried to explain this finding in political terms, asserting that the country veered steadily rightward beginning in 2012, causing left-of-center kids to be more depressed. Michelle Goldberg, a left-of-center columnist writing for the New York Times, dismissed that assertion by Gimbrone and colleagues as simply not accurate. Goldberg observed that President Barack Obama was re-elected in 2012. She noted that the United States Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage nationwide in 2015. Those events should have encouraged left-of-center kids, but depressive symptoms rose steadily nevertheless. Goldberg suggested instead that left-of-center kids are more likely to be on social media than right-of-center kids. She drew on a growing body of research showing that teens who spend more time on social media are more likely to be depressed compared with teens who spend less time on social media. We will take a close look at this research in Chapter 5, Screens. Left-of-center teens are now more likely to be depressed than conservative teens because left-of-center teens spend more time on social media, so says Goldberg. NYU professor Jonathan Haidt rejects both Gimbrone's conjecture of a studied rightward shift and Goldberg's attribution of blame to social media in explaining the political dimension of this rise in depression. Haidt argues that the real reason left-of-center kids are more likely to be depressed compared with right-of-center kids is that left-of-center kids have been taught to catastrophize events, to assume the worst, while right-of-center kids are taught to be more optimistic. I think both Goldberg and Haidt make good points, and their arguments are not mutually exclusive. Goldberg's argument about social media being the mediating factor driving the growth in depression is certainly valid, and we will return to that factor in Chapter 5. But Goldberg and Haidt are both missing another explanation, which from my perspective as a family doctor, is definitely an additional contributing factor. As I mentioned, I am now encountering more and more parents like the mom who said, her body, her choice. Parents who might be described as aggressively permissive. They think it's actually virtuous to let kids decide everything. And those gentle parents are not randomly distributed along the political spectrum. They are overwhelmingly more likely to be left of center. Conservative parents still insist that their kids open their mouths and say ah when they bring their kids to the doctor with a fever and a sore throat. This is a big change. As recently as 10 years ago, it wasn't unusual to find left-of-center parents who were authoritative, even strict. That is less common today. Permissive parenting is now more common among left-of-center parents than right-of-center parents. That's important because researchers have found that permissive parenting leads to young adults with less sense of meaning and purpose in life, less autonomy and mastery of the world around them. Other researchers have found that permissive parenting leads to lower emotional intelligence and lower personal growth. Still, other researchers report that permissive parenting is associated with an increased risk of drug and alcohol abuse and lower academic achievement, while authoritative parenting is associated with lower risk of drug and alcohol abuse and higher academic achievement. The children of permissive parents are more likely to become anxious and depressed. 2 decades ago, University of Virginia sociologist Brad Wilcox presented evidence that conservative religious parents were the parents most likely to be authoritative, just right parents. And from my perspective, that's even more true today. Conservative, religious parents are now the most likely to be the just right parent, not too hard and not too soft. There are still a few conservative religious parents who are too hard, but they are a dwindling minority. Left-of-center parents are now the parents most likely to be permissive, too soft in their parenting style. Both left-of-center parents and right-of-center parents have become more permissive over the past decade. That's a major theme of this book, for which I will present more evidence as we go along. But left-of-center parents are now more likely to be permissive compared with right-of-center parents. That, I believe, is part of the reason why left-of-center kids are now more likely to be depressed compared with right-of-center kids. Today, when I counsel permissive, too soft parents on the importance of being more authoritative, setting rules, and enforcing those rules while still communicating love for the child, left-of-center parents are now more likely to push back. They tell me they don't want to be controlling. They don't want to be coercive. 10 years ago, I could persuade such parents that kids need structure. Kids need rules. Kids need consistency. Today, I don't have much luck with permissive left-of-center parents. Her body, her choice. I am a family doctor, not a politician. I'm not suggesting that left-of-center parents should adopt right-of-center politics. And, because you asked, I am a registered independent. I'm just asking that you keep your politics out of your parenting. Your child, your teenager, needs you to provide structure, to set boundaries, to lay down guardrails that are enforced. This has nothing to do with blue states versus red states or Democrat versus Republican. This is about what your kid needs. Kids are not born courteous or respectful. Courtesy and respect are not genetically programmed. Those virtues have to be taught. You must teach them. I visited multiple schools across Scotland, meeting with students, talking with parents, and leading workshops for teachers at each school. To get to Scotland, I flew from Philadelphia to London Heathrow, and then connected on a smaller plane from London Heathrow to Edinburgh. I arrived well ahead of time for the first flight, the long haul across the Atlantic on a big Airbus A330. Waiting at the gate in Terminal A at the Philadelphia airport, I watched an American family, a mother, a father, a teenage daughter, and 2 younger sons. "Where are my donuts?" one of the boys said. He looked to be about 8 years old. "Sweetie, I thought we should save those for the plane," his mom said. "I want them right now," he said more loudly. "Honey, you just had dessert. Let's wait till—" "I want them right now," he shouted at the top of his lungs. His mom looked guiltily around, as though the TSA might arrest her. Without another word, she fished in her bag and handed over the entire box of donuts to him. The voice of the gate attendant came over the public address system. "In a few minutes, we will begin boarding American Airlines Flight 728 to London's Heathrow Airport. We board by zone number. You will find your zone number on your boarding ticket. Please have your passport open to the photo page." The teenage daughter was texting on her cell phone. "Trish, it's time to put the cell phone away. We need to get ready to board," her mom said. Her daughter ignored her. "Trish? Mom, would you please shut up? Can't you see that I am busy?" "Trish, we need to get ready to board? The plane?" The mom's words sounded like questions. Her daughter continued to ignore her. Mom glanced at me. I felt uneasy and walked away. I could sense Mom's discomfort. I was uncomfortable too. But the kids are in their element. They are living in a different culture. Mom has not encultured her kids into her own culture. Instead, Mom is trying to adapt to the children's culture, the culture of disrespect, which they have learned from their peers. No enduring society does this. No enduring society expects the grown-ups to conform to the culture of the children. And while these kids might be enjoying themselves now, after a fashion, eating the donuts, their parents' failure to enculture and instruct their children rightly means that these kids will be ill-equipped to withstand the challenges of later adolescence and adulthood. Sometimes you have to wait before you eat the donuts. Sometimes you don't get to eat the donuts at all. That's life.
And that was the end of chapter 1, The Culture of Disrespect. And as I was listening to this section, I was thinking, gee, I wonder if he's going to get to the point where he discusses the fact that not all parents and not all children are alike. He approached it initially as though all children across the United States are acting up or acting out, and all parents are just simply putting up with it. And finally, he gets to the point where he makes the distinction and says it's a right-left situation. And he would have been better even if he had mentioned The Sovereign Child, the book The Sovereign Child. So he did mention something else, cutie pie parenting or something like that. But anyhow, then he's talking about, at the end, about the parents that are suffering with their kids, and he is saying or implying that, again, going back to the idea that all parents and all kids are bratty. And then he suggests that he talks about society, that our society can't live with this kind of situation. I'm going to be honest, I don't give a rat's ass about our society. What I care about is me and mine. He would have been much more effective if he would have skipped the part about society and replace it with you don't have to. Okay? And explain to people that you're going to be under pressure to raise your kids the way these parents do. That raise them to be brats. But you don't have to. Back in a minute. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.